You were thinking of cleavage now, weren't you?
Yes, I was just...
You were thinking of cleavage. I think Starmer may be gone after the May elections, if we have elections. The best deal we're going to get for you is if you plead guilty now. If you think the attack line is, here's Elon Musk doing a Nazi salute, and if you've seen all the pictures today of Obama, Hillary Clinton, all doing, if you catch him at the right angle, a photo, you can make anyone do a Nazi salute. I want death penalty, that's what I would like, death penalty. Do we deport them for the sins of the son? Because that'll send a real good message to lots of immigrants in this country.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to edition 73 of The Mayor and I, with I, Lindsay Kahn, and the Mayor, Nick Buckley. Our weekly chat, and today's the 21st of January, and that's important, we'll explain in a minute, where we discuss things that are happening, our opinions on them, my opinions. If I get upset, you try and calm me down, and vice versa. And if you like what you're hearing at any point, if something amuses you or interests you, please hit like, subscribe, and comment. Because we have a lot of viewers who don't subscribe, but we know more than the actual subscribers, so it would be great if you guys could actually subscribe as well.
Since last week, we've gone up almost 2,000 subscribers.
And I was going to mention the fact that we have gone over, you have gone over 30,000.
We have,
thank you. We've gone over 30,000 subscribers. So, Nick Buckley, very well done, and welcome to The Mayor and I.
Thank you.
So that's part of the news, great news, 30,000 subscribers. But I wanted to talk about two things importantly today, because yesterday was the 20th of January. And I think there's an inclination, 20th January 2025, there's an inclination to talk about one thing that happened. But actually, I think two very important things happened yesterday. And I'd like us to talk about both of them, hear your opinions on both of them. But I'd like to give you the choice which one to talk about first. So the two things that happened were, and I'm not putting these in order of preference, the inauguration of the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and the second thing was the commencement of the trial of Axel Rudakabana, the Southport child killer. So which would you like to talk about first, Nick?
I think the important one is a Trump one, and the surprising one is the Axel Rudakabana pleading guilty. No one saw that coming. Right,
okay, right. We'll talk about Trump then first.
Yeah.
And just coincidentally, we were both travelling quite extraordinarily long distances yesterday. So yesterday I was in London, and you were...
I was only in Oldham. I wouldn't say I was travelling far. I was in Oldham.
And you went to Oldham to talk what is it? Some sort of annual protest you do there or something?
No, it was Turning Point UK.
Yeah.
We're having a demonstration yesterday outside Oldham Council just before the public meeting where they were going to listen to testimony from survivors of the grooming gangs.
Right.
So there was several speakers. I was one of them. And someone filmed my little speech, so I copied it and put it on social media. That's how you got to see it.
Yeah. It came to my attention. It was a good speech as well, basically, about what was happening, about the fact these things are now in the daylight, I think, is what you were talking about. So I would recommend our viewers to watch that if you can. I was in London to go to a Free Speech Union thing, which was the farewell of Graham Linehan, who I think you know who Graham Linehan is.
Yeah, I know who he is, yeah.
He's the writer of Father Ted, Black Books, The IT Crowd, who basically has had his career and life destroyed in the last 5 years because he's stood up for women, really, about the trans thing. And he has been literally... So it was a farewell for him. There were about 400 people there. It was really... and bizarrely, Rob the American, our friend, was there as well, which I didn't expect. But maybe we can talk about both of those things later. So if we talk about the inauguration of Trump first, I suppose my first question is, did you watch it and what did you think of it? I
didn't watch it. I've seen bits on social media. I'm just glad he's taken post. I'm just glad within hours of him taking office, he was doing stuff. He cancelled the immigration app for people in Mexico to book an appointment to get through the border and stuff like that. He cancelled that straight away. He started sacking top civil servants in government, saying, you don't believe in my project, you're gone. He's already started, which is what I wanted to see. I wanted action on day one.
I watched it actually. I'd had to leave at about 5 from the hotel because I needed to go. We need to go and get something to eat before the Graham Linehan thing. But I actually watched the actual build up to it and people coming in and things like that. And I thought it was really, really interesting how different it was to his inauguration in 2016. It might have been 2017 he was actually inaugurated. I can't remember.
It would have been, yeah.
What was fascinating was the audience, because the last time he was inaugurated, it was a very parochial group around him of his friends and family, and this time it was really a roster of the great and the good. In particular, there was probably on one of the rows there represented a massive percentage of the richest people in America. So there was obviously Elon Musk, who we know and love. There was Tim Cook, who's the chief exec of Apple, the second biggest company behind Musk's company there. There was Mark Zuckerberg, who...
Looking down someone's top.
Looking down someone's... Colletage, I think they call it, which is, So Mark Zuckerberg was looking down Jeff Bezos' wife's dress, because she's a striking woman. Sorry, you distracted me.
You were thinking of cleavage, though, weren't you?
Yes, I was just.
You were thinking of cleavage.
Mark Zuckerberg was there. There was Jeff Bezos was there. I didn't see Soros.
I meant Bezos. Sorry.
Jeff Bezos was there as well. And interestingly, the chief exec of Google. And Google is kind of the last hurdle now in terms of the anti-woke movement, I think, that's probably out there. Amazon, I think, is slightly woke, but doesn't really have that much influence. There were various other billionaires there. There were all the former presidents there as well. Yep. There was Trump's family were there as well. There was Javier Milei, who is the president of Argentina.
Fantastic.
There was Giorgia Meloni.
From Italy, fantastic.
There
was no Starmer, though.
Yeah, no Keir Starmer. Boris Johnson was there.
Right.
And I think Farage was in there. I didn't see Farage, but I think he was in... There's only a very small group of people in the actual Capitol building itself. And you really got the sense that he now has America behind him this time.
Yeah. I think 8 years ago, at his last inauguration, he was perceived to be a fluke. He was perceived to be, we don't know how the hell he won this. But once he's gone, things will go back to normal. So nobody wanted to hitch their cart to the Trump bandwagon. 8 years later, all these people have went, no, this is the future. This is here to stay. It's not just Trump now. Even when Trump's gone, it's going to be all these other Republicans will be continue his legacy forward. I need to get on the winning side, and Trump is the winning side now. So I think that's the big change.
Yeah, the former president, and so there were other interesting things that happened as well. So Obama turned up, Barack Obama,
yeah,
but without his wife.
Right.
So Michelle Obama didn't turn up, and nobody has an explanation for why that happened.
Yeah.
Biden and Kamala Harris turned up. They looked grumpy through most of the
well, they had to turn up.
They have to turn up, They turned up. So Trump then noticeably tried to kiss his wife and couldn't reach his wife because she had a massive hat on.
I saw that.
And people then, of course, tried to interpret this as there's no relationship, despite the fact that after the ceremony he then did kiss his wife, because he just couldn't get near her because of the hat. His son Barron was there, who's very tall, and he was bizarrely, when Trump was being sworn in, when he was visible between Trump and J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance was there, who's the vice president, with his wife, who's Indian, and their children as well, which was really interesting. So the whole thing, and when he swore on the Bible, for some reason Trump didn't put his hand on the Bible. I think it was nervousness or whatever, but it was kind of left over. So that was very interesting. He then gave a 26-minute speech in which he basically laid into Biden's presidency.
Good.
Which again was very interesting. But probably the most interesting thing after that is he then went to a large venue and started signing executive orders. And are you aware of what these executive orders are that he signed?
No, I may have read about him, but I can't remember what they were now.
So it's almost like he's doing exactly what should be done in this country.
Right.
So he signed an executive order saying that from now on in all federal and government organisation there will only be two genders.
Yes.
Male and female.
I read that.
That's one of them. He immediately described as you say, cancelled the app for immigrants. He immediately called the Mexican cartels terrorist organizations, basically. He's exited the World Health Organization.
Yes.
He's exited the Paris Climate Agreement as well. He's renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America.
Yeah, I like that one. I like that because it's pure virtue signalling. It's pure saying to them, this is my time.
Yeah.
And I will name whatever I want to name. You can still call it the Gulf of Mexico, but in my administration we call it the Gulf of America.
Yeah.
It's that bravado I like on
Yeah.
that. It's meaningless, but it isn't meaningless.
Yeah, but it isn't meaningless, is it? And I think he's stopped working from home for government employees. I think that's another thing.
Every time you mention working from home, we get a load of people going, you shouldn't be insulting your viewers. I'm not watching again.
I made the mistake of using a general phrase. So I said that arseholes who work from home, and it's caused a lot of discussion. But incidentally, it's on one of our most watched videos as well. So, I mean, my wife made a very interesting comment. She said it's almost like he's trying to return America to how it was pre-COVID. And it is kind of that, isn't it? It's kind of he's resetting everything, isn't he?
Yeah. Because don't forget, pre-COVID, he was in charge and everything was doing really well in America.
Yeah.
COVID killed his presidency.
Yeah. And it's you look at what he's doing over there and you think, please, isn't this exactly what we need to happen in the UK? And
it will.
Yeah.
And it will. We're going to be a few years behind it.
Yeah.
That's the only problem is we're going to have to wait a couple of years. But those things will start happening here because they're going to start happening in Europe. Already happening in Europe. But once the British people see what's happening over there, we're going to want it over here.
Yeah. I really got the sense, this is a man now who is, and I think what was really interesting, he's talking about a golden age for America. Now, compare and contrast that to what Starmer said when he took power here.
What did he say, Starmer? I can't remember what he said.
Well, he basically said things are tough and they're going to get tougher, didn't he?
Oh,
he said
yes.
So it's have you lost your memory since last time?
A lot's gone on in 6-7 months, and Starmer's saying bollocks every other day.
Well, the point I make is when Starmer came in, it was all, we've inherited a £22 billion debt. Things are going to get worse before they get better. But Trump has come in completely the opposite. I'm at a disadvantage here because if you've not watched any of this, we've got to. I'm glad you're prepared for this today, Nick. Thank you.
But I can understand why he's done that. It doesn't matter if you have to go through hard times to get to better times, but it's the vision you sell people. It's that grit and determination that, the country's not perfect. The other administration has ruined lots of things, but do you know what? This is the greatest country in the world and we've got through worse before. So we're going to tighten our belts a bit, but while we've tightened our belts, we're going to look after each other and support each other, and we're going to get behind the flag, and we're going to. That's how you rally a nation, even if you know you've got to go through some tough times. But Starmer didn't. Starmer just says the Tories have ruined everything, and it's going to be hard work. And if you're lucky, we might be able to save you in 10 years' time after you've got no money left. It's like, what sort of visions, right? And you wonder why he tanked the economy.
And that's the contrast, isn't it? They have a leader over there who's talking about growth, imperialism, a golden age,
A leader.
a time of enlightenment for the American people. And what do we have here?
Yep.
We have this strange man with a high-pitched voice who's just, constantly being negative about everything. So it was a fantastic thing to watch, and the fact he's gone.
You keep talking. I'm just going to
He's gone aggressively on these executive orders immediately to change so much is really fascinating. Apparently, he sat in front of an audience and was signing these executive orders one after the other, changing all these things.
And that's because he spent 4 years in opposition, knowing exactly what he's going to do if he ever gets in power again. 8 years ago, he had no idea what he was going to do.
Yeah.
And so things took time, but now he knows what to do.
Yeah. And I think what's really interesting as well, these discussions, I was discussing it with a business colleague of mine today, these things he's making decisions about, these ideas, are almost like business ideas. They're not like, he's thinking of America as a company, and this is how we're going to grow the company. It's like, we're going to acquire this area over here, which is Greenland. We're going to annex Canada. We're going to take. Another thing he's said is he's going to take back the Panama Canal. Yeah. Because he's saying it's basically controlled by China, and he's going to take it back as well. So that's another. I don't know how he signed an executive order for that, but so it's somebody who's thinking about their country like a company and thinking how to make it stronger, more profitable, more powerful.
I'm sure he's doing that, but if he wants to be a successful president, he needs to be thinking more than just that. Running a company is more than running a business, because running a business, a lot of it is down to pennies and pence and profit. It's more than that, running government. But it includes that. Yeah. You can't run a country if you're bankrupt. Yeah. You can't run a country when you've got no business and no money coming in. So I'm sure he's doing that, but I'm sure there's a lot more behind the scenes he wants to do.
Yeah. But and a part of a company as well as the people, and the people being motivated and feeling positive about the company. But he's certainly doing that. Yeah. The people, and it's interesting, as Biden and Obama arrived at the Capitol building, they were booed.
Who was
by
booed?
The crowd? Biden and Obama,
right.
as they were arriving at the country, the Capitol building, they were booed, which was again fascinating, and obviously all the Trump entourage was cheered. So we have a scenario now in America where a president like Trump has arrived, a man who is doing all the things he wants to be doing in England, who is now supported by the elite and the rich in America as well. All these guys like RFK Jr. were there as well, and all these other characters were there as well. And he has the major people in the country behind him as well.
And you know what made me smile and laugh?
I thought you didn't watch any of it.
No, I mean, the fallout from it was the two attack lines from all the wet liberals. The two attack lines was Trump's wife doesn't want to kiss him, which we talked about because of her hat.
Yeah.
And
Elon Musk.
I would imagine she'd spend hours doing herself up. And you're a brave man to mess with a woman's hat. Correct. That messes with her hair.
Yes.
You just don't you don't do that.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't get underneath to kiss her.
Yeah.
If she didn't want to kiss him, he'd have given her £14 billion to kiss him on camera if it was all about the kiss.
Yeah.
It was the hat. And the other one was even more pathetic. Elon Musk with a Nazi salute. If that's your attack line, then you've learnt nothing in the last few years. If you think the attack line is, here's Elon Musk doing a Nazi salute, and if you've seen all the pictures today of Obama, Hillary Clinton, all doing, if you capture him at the right angle, a photo, you can make anyone do a Nazi salute. And it's like, is that all you've got?
Well, there was a picture of one of the the village people were dancing at the dance. One of them had his hands up high. Said, "Look, he's doing two Nazi salutes."
Double Nazi salute.
But the Elon Musk thing. So you've got to remember Elon Musk. Whilst he's the richest man in the world, he's basically a bit of a nerd, isn't he? He's kind of, and I think he's quite a shy person. So it's not his natural scenario to stand up on a stage. So I think he had in his mind, I'm going to do the kind of the Roman, whatever it might be. But he just ended up doing it like that because he's a little bit, what's the word for it? Kind of awkward in his that's all it was. It's just if you get a nerd on stage and ask him to kind of celebrate, that's the sort of thing he'll do basically. But if that's the best they can do,
exactly,
they've got a problem.
If that's their only tagline, then they're pathetic and they've learned nothing. They've learned nothing.
Yeah. So I thought it was a great day for America, a great day for the world, and especially a great day for the United Kingdom. Because I think they have to. I think the nature of Starmer and his cabinet, they are such weaselly, cowardly types that they basically bow to the nearest what they think is the most important thing. So, for example, BLM, Starmer's on his knees straight away. Is a trans thing? Is a man? Is somebody with a penis a woman? Yes, they might be. I mean, I think they're such cowardly little snivelling types that the sheer willpower and energy coming from America will force them to start to follow that line.
I think the complete opposite. I don't think this Labour government is for U-turning on anything. I think the history up to now of 7 months in power is they double down on everything. I don't think they care about Trump. I don't think to a certain extent they care about Trump. I think they all... Listen to what they've said over years. He's Hitler, he's evil, is this, is that. And that's all the top people in the Labour Party. They're not for changing. They're going to want to do a deal with him if they can for money to keep their government going. But they're not going to be copying Trump whatsoever. It's the government that comes after this that we need to hope take on board the lessons from Trump.
I mean, just before we move on to Axel Rudikabana, what are your views? Because I think I saw a tweet from you, or it might have been a YouTube video from you today, possibly saying this government isn't going to last. What's your thought process now in terms of how long this government's going to last, how long Starmer's going to last, how long Rachel Reeves is going to last?
I think Starmer may be gone after the May elections, if we have elections. Because Labour's going to do that badly that the Labour government, then all those MPs will look at the results and go, that's my seat gone at any forthcoming general election. And who's in charge? Starmer. No charisma, no smile, everyone hates him, most unpopular Prime Minister ever. We'll stand a better chance with anybody but him. At the same time, people like Wes Streeting and Andy Burnham are making their move. I'm not a fan of Andy Burnham, but if I was a Labour supporter, I'd be looking at Andy Burnham. If anyone has a chance of winning a Labour victory at next general election, there's no one better out there than Andy Burnham. Even though I disagree with almost everything he wants to do, I can still see talent. I can still see a half decent politician who knows what they're doing to a certain extent. So I can see Starmer going then, because once he takes the blame for the local elections, the next leader comes in then with a clean slate and has a year then to the next local elections. The Labour Party itself, they're not going to call a general election because they know many are going to be wiped out. They have to be forced into a general election, and it'll be events, dear boy, events. Something, I don't know what it's going to be, but something's going to happen. It could be economy crashing, going to the World Bank. It could be a war somewhere. It could be a series of terrorist attacks in this country. I don't know, but something is going to happen where this government will not be viable anymore, and we have to go back to the people. They're not going to last the 5-year term.
Could be power cuts.
Could be. There's so many.
Apparently, we came very close to a power cut a couple of weeks ago because they're now relying on wind power for our electricity. It's only generating 10% of our energy needs, and shortly during that cold snap, the wind went right down. And there was no energy coming out of the... And energy went up because everyone's turning heatings on. It could be power cuts. It could we were having to buy gas from abroad, and of course there's a massive demand for gas. So we didn't nearly get the gas we wanted.
So anything could happen. It could be a war in the Middle East.
Yeah.
There's lots of things that could happen. We've seen that throughout history.
So Trump has signed an executive order allowing people to start drilling for more gas and oil in America.
Yeah.
And he said he wants to get to the point where they are one of the biggest exporters of gas and oil.
Well,
that's another thing.
They were when he was in power.
Yeah. So he's also scrapped all the electric car targets. You know, all this stuff about you got to have. That's all been scrapped. He scrapped all the net zero crap as well in America, and he said, "Let's drill, baby, drill."
America is going to boom over the next 4 years.
Yeah.
Part of me will be envious, and part of me will be upset that we're not doing it.
Yes, yeah. But I think if you feel that way, Nick, surely the majority of the population will start to feel that way as well, won't they?
They will once they start seeing what's happening in America, once it's being reported on, and why are utility bills in America, only 25% of what we pay? Why is their central heating only costing, 4 times cheaper than what we pay here?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why can you fill up one of the American big cars for £10 when it's going to cost us £80, £100? Why?
Yeah.
Why have they got all these new jobs? All paying $100,000 a year. How are they getting those jobs? And when we start seeing all that, then we're going to be asking questions, and the news will start reporting it, and Twitter will be reporting it, and people will see it and going, well, it's obvious why. Why can't we drill? I wrote an article a couple of years ago, and from a memory, we've got up to 1,000 years worth of coal under our feet.
Yes.
1,000 years.
Yeah.
We've got hundreds of years worth of gas, shale gas under our feet, and that's not even talking about the North Sea oil.
Yeah. We have 50 years of gas apparently in the shale side of things.
That's the easy accessible gas.
Yeah.
From the research I did, it's hundreds of years of gas, hundreds of years.
And we've still got the coal mines.
Yeah.
That have just been abandoned.
Yeah.
Basically. So.
And we've got better technology now to get that coal out more efficiently and cleaner and cheaper.
And more technology to burn it, as you say, more effectively and more efficiently. Move now to the other major event, in my view, which was the trial of Axel Ruder-Cabana, who is the horrible man who killed those young girls and I think badly injured a group of. Apparently, we don't talk about. Apparently, there's a lot of very seriously injured girls who were there still,
and teacher,
and the teacher as well. So, first of all, if we just talk about what the surprise was on the day, and maybe you give us your thoughts as to why that happened, why you think that surprise happened, and then we'll go on to talk about the reaction of Starmer and Yvette Cooper as well, because I think that's interesting as well. But can you bring our gentle viewers up to speed on what actually happened and why it was surprising and why you think it happened as well?
We all expected a 3-month trial. Him pleading not guilty, excuses being made that he's mentally ill, that he suffered from racism, and he's really a woman trapped in a man's body. We expected excuse after excuse after excuse. And first day in court, he pleads guilty. So that's the end of the court case.
Guilty to everything.
Guilty to everything. So there's nothing to prove now.
Yeah.
We're waiting for a day or two for the sentencing. Why has he done that? And
just for clarity, for our viewers, what exactly has he pleaded guilty to?
My understanding is he pleaded guilty to all the charges, which is 3 murders, 6 attempted murders, producing ricin under terrorism charges, having a prescribed ISIS manual. He pleaded guilty to everything.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically, as I understand it, pleaded guilty to the murders and the assault and the injuries.
Yeah.
But also he's pleaded guilty to being a terrorist.
Yeah.
And I want to come back to that later.
Yeah. No, he pleaded guilty to everything. Why has he done that? The conspiracy part of me says there's a reason. He's not pleaded guilty because he thinks he's guilty and he wants it over and done with. He's been not offered a deal, but I think his team have said to him, the best deal we're going to get for you is if you plead guilty now, because you're under 21, it's highly unlikely you're going to be given a life sentence because you're under 21. You're only 17, 18. If you plead guilty, they'll take that into consideration. You're going to get so-called life, and you could be out in 8 to 10 years. So I think that's why he's pleaded guilty. So what's he now, 18, 19, something like that?
He's 18 now. He was 17 at the time.
Yeah, so he's 18 now.
Yeah.
He could be out in 10 years. He could be out in his late 20s. The court can give him an indefinite life sentence, but it hardly happens to anybody under 21. And the fact he was technically a child when he committed the horrendous crime at 17, all these things are going into his favour. The fact it's not been dragged out in court, the fact that there's been no questions about Starmer's involvement and the jihad part of the attack, and it's all just closed the book on it, may also entice the government to put pressure on the judges to go, we just want this over and done with. So there's a very good chance he could get 10 years. He could be out in 10 years. He'll get something that sounds awful. He might get, indefinite down to probation. But there's a very good chance, regardless of what he gets, he could be out in 10 years. I want death penalty. That's what I would like, death penalty. There's nothing he could be given that I would think is fair.
Do you think it is possible it suits the government that he's pleaded guilty?
Absolutely. And I think that's why he's going to get a lesser sentence. He's not going to get forever now in jail. He's going to be out in 10 years. I think that's part of the deal his team's done.
So are you suggesting then there is a possibility the government may have exerted pressure in some shape, way or form, may not avert pressure, to persuade his lawyers, whoever's defending him, that they would look favourably on a guilty plea?
I think unofficial, with no records, it's been made known that if you plead guilty and this case disappears, because we don't want this case, if this place can disappear in a couple of days because you pleaded guilty, the judges will look favourably upon that. I don't think they're silly enough to have broken a law on this, to approach people and made offers. They're not that silly, because they know not only would it come out, they'd be in jail and lynched. But I think they've made it known through back channels and innuendo and we look favourably on this.
So it might just be a conversation which just say, well, of course, if he pleads guilty, it's likely he'll get out.
It's in the public's interest, to get this case over and done with. It's in the public interest. And I'm sure the judiciary would look favourably upon that. That's how these things are done.
Is that what people say? I'm not on Twitter, so is that what people are saying on Twitter about it?
I'm not hearing that, but that was my conclusion within an hour of all this coming out.
Right.
It was like, this doesn't feel right. I don't understand why he's pleading not guilty. You're not going to lose out by pleading innocent. And stretching it out and seeing what could happen. And it's like, no, someone's getting something out of this.
And I think the intention, again, of the government or whoever is behind the date of this trial was that this would be masked by Trump's inauguration. Do you think that's happened? Do you think they've been successful in that?
I don't think they thought Trump's inauguration was going to kill this story. I just think they knew, if we're going to have bad news, let's put it out on a busy day. Let's get it out on a busy day. Same with the Rick Jones, the councillor. He was in court that day, and they've postponed his case for 7 months.
Till August.
Till August. I just think it's like, get it all on the same day, and there's only so much bandwidth you can report, and there's only so many things people will listen to. Get it all out on the same day.
But I think it's interesting, because I was flipping between GB News and Sky for some reason Sky was more real time than GB News on the inauguration, so I was flipping, like you do for football matches, well, you don't, but the Sky News is reporting the Axel Rudy Cabana, which I was quite shocked at. and it was actually reporting on Trump's presidency quite positively.
Yeah.
And this morning, because I was in London and I read the paper at the breakfast table, the Times was also reporting on Trump's presidency very favourably as well. So I don't know. Again, is the media starting to shift a bit towards?
Well, I think it has for a while now.
Because I've not read paper. I do not read newspapers anymore.
Yeah.
Because I got so disillusioned with the crap they were spewing, especially during COVID.
It's very hard to be critical of a president's inauguration because it's pomp and circumstance, basically.
Yeah.
It's hard to be critical of it, so they're reporting it as a good news story.
Yeah.
The people tuning in are tuning in because they're interested in it.
Yeah.
So they have to report it in a positive light, otherwise their viewers will just turn off.
Yeah.
And they'll lose advertisement venue on that.
But the banner below was talking about Rudy Cabana.
Yeah. Because
so it's his big news in mainstream media.
No, of course it is, but it would have been a bigger story if Trump hadn't been sworn in that day.
Definitely.
Because the news channel all would have been about that non-stop.
Yeah.
So the fact it wasn't means that story got slightly diluted.
Yeah, and the fact it's going to be over quickly means it won't be coming to prevalence in the next few weeks because it'll have gone.
Yeah, it's gone now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some things did emerge during the trial, that even though he pleaded guilty, about Rudy Cabana. I don't know if you want to let our viewers know, in terms of his history, are you aware of what was told?
All I know is he was referred to Prevent 3 times.
Correct.
He had a knife in school at one point. There's a video of him online attacking another student in the classroom that got videoed. Hugely disturbed individual.
And there was also a story, which again I'm interested in your take on this because I want to know what your view about the father in this is. He set off one day after he'd been expelled from this school. He set off one day with a knife to the school to basically hurt people, or he had something with names. He set off to the school to hurt people in the school, and his father managed to stop him. He came out and stopped him, I think. So this happened obviously quite a long time before the Southport attack. So what are the ramifications of that for the father, and I guess for the authorities, in the fact they knew about this guy? They knew he was dangerous.
Yes. Dangerous people will always slip through the net. The only way to stop that is to arrest and lock everybody up the second anyone complains about him, and we don't live in that sort of society. Prevent has shown it's incompetent, and part of the reason why Prevent is incompetent on things like this because we've spent years now encouraging lots of other people to refer sexist white boys into Prevent. Prevent's only got so much money and so many officers, and we've been bombarding them with a waste of time referrals to get their figures up that it's not all about Islamic extremism. And we've diluted the work they can do. So that's part of the problem there. Nutcases are in every community, in every country, and we'll never be able to stop all nutcases. We should be able to reduce the number. The parents, I'm against visiting the sins of the father on the son. So just because your parents may have done things in the past, it's not your fault. You were their child, you weren't involved in it. But I take a different approach about visiting the sins of the son upon the father, because that father raised that child. So parents need to take responsibility for their children, even their adult children. They need to take responsibility. Just like when we talked about those 2 white English prostitutes, Lily Phillips and Bonnie Blue, having sex competitions. You can sleep with the most men.
I'm not aware of the sex competition. I'm aware of that Lily, whatever. I knew she slept with 1,000 men.
Yeah, well, she's got a competitor and she's trying to sleep with more now, and there's competition trying to outdo each other all the time. They're in it together. It's all about PR for them. But the point I'm trying to make is I hold their parents responsible for the actions of their grown daughter. And I do with Ruby Cabana's father.
Rudy Cabana.
We need
Ruba.
to... Yeah.
Cabana. Sorry, go on. You call him Ruby Cabana.
We need to have it... I think it's appropriate to have a discussion how much responsibility we place on his parents.
Well, I think the thing I'm more interested in is the fact the father knew he was going to try and hurt people.
That was 3 years before.
Yeah, well, 3 years, it doesn't really matter 3 years before. The father knew he had a history of this, knew he'd carried a knife, knew he'd been expelled, all that sort of stuff. The kid then just manages to stop the child, the boy, the man, going to wreak havoc. Did he not have a responsibility? Would a father, and it's an interesting question, isn't it? Because I'm sure our gentle viewers will have very different views on this. Should a father then take action by going to authorities in that situation and say, my son is troubled, he's going to hurt somebody, I've managed to stop him today, but somebody needs to take some action now because I can't keep stopping him, and one day I'm not going to be there and he might go and do something crazy. And did the father know about the children, about the fact he was going to the Taylor Swift thing to kill those children?
See, we don't know any of this at the moment.
No.
But hopefully we'll find out over the next weeks and probably months. We don't know. How do we know that he was going to kill those kids at school with a knife and his father stopped him? Was it because his father reported him that?
No. No, this has been revealed presumably by investigators who've been looking into this. The father must have said, 3 years ago he was going to go to school. Right. So I think that's how they found out. I don't think that's unless his father did report him to the event. My understanding is his father didn't report him.
Yeah.
And I can understand the impulse of a father to stop their son doing that, and I also understand the impulse of a father not to report your own child to the police.
But this is an ordinary father. This is a Rwandan father who's come from a country where he was involved in a genocide. I'm not saying he took part in the genocide, but he was involved at some point in the genocide. You know, the killing with knives of 1 million people. So his understanding of what's right and wrong in this country and what he's willing to accept, and knowing he knew people who hacked people to death, is he going to give his son to the authorities in a foreign country? Then we don't know. But I'd like a national conversation about his parents, to an extent where we say, do we deport them or not now? Do we deport them for the sins of the son? Because that'll send a real good message to lots of immigrants in this country, that you, as a young immigrant, can lead to your parents being deported who are also immigrants. I'm not sure where I stand on that yet. I need to give it a lot more thought.
I mean, I think you've hit on another interesting point, which is something you've always said. They're behaving in a way that is appropriate for their culture. So stopping your son going out to stab somebody, that might happen more often in Rwanda than we think it might happen, because of the nature of their society and their culture. Yeah. So it doesn't fit into British society, does it?
So he stopped his black son, who got kicked out of school, from carrying a knife. I know lots of black kids like that, kicked out of school and carry knives.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they go on to kill 3 little girls, but this is cultural.
Yeah, this is not British culture.
No.
And it circles round again, doesn't it? The idea that he was a British boy, which is bollocks as well. I mean, I'd like to also talk, before we move on to the reaction from the government, about his picture. So we now see...
I mean, what a picture.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ, even I was surprised at that.
That is a scary picture of this kid, this man. And my immediate thought was those poor bloody kids in that room. Yeah. When that monstrous-looking man came in. I mean, he looks evil. He looks like an evil man. The picture actually reminded me of something, because of the size of his hair and the way that his eyes are so white. Do you remember the gollywog in Robertson's Jam? Yep. That had a similar kind of scary look about it. The kind of the face and the big hair, that big crazy hairdo he's got. Now, that picture I think is horrific. If that picture had been released at the time of the murders, the reaction, people's reaction and demand for answers would have been far more virulent, I see. But apparently that picture was available virtually immediately after the event. Did you know that?
No.
Yes. Yeah. So that picture was taken on the day of his arrest. Yeah. But it's never been released. Instead, we were given pictures of And
What do you mean it's never been, who didn't release it?
I don't know. The police, I'm guessing.
Oh, right, yeah. I thought you meant it'd been released, but nobody wanted to publish it.
It may have been. I don't know. Maybe we can look into this. I don't know.
If it had been released, it'd have found its way on the internet.
Right. Okay.
So it's not been released. The police.
But it was taken on the day of his arrest. That was the point I was making.
No, absolutely. That's his arrest photo. That wasn't released because he looks crazy.
Yeah.
I don't remember another time in my lifetime where a mugshot was not released to the public.
Yeah.
When the press asked for it.
Yeah.
So we relied on these sketches where he covered his face.
Yeah.
And we relied on a 7-year-old photo of him supporting Doctor Who with a smiley face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you saw that guy walking down the street towards you, you'd be a bit worried, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Because he has the look of an insane man about him, basically.
He is insane.
So then who made the decision not to release that photo?
That would have been top of the police and the government.
So,
and I would imagine the reasoning would have been, we can't release that photo. First of all, it'll prejudice the case because he looks mental, and we're dealing with far right riots at the moment. And if they see that photo, that's going to inflame the situation more, and there's going to be more riots. So for public safety, we're not releasing that photo.
But who are they to decide that?
They probably could. They've got a legal right to do it, but it's wrong. But they've probably got a legal right to do it.
And it makes the whole thing even more horrific, the fact that all this time we've been seeing these pictures of this cherubic little black kid, basically, when actually we should have been seeing the face of the monster.
He looks like a monster.
Yeah. So as a result of this, again on the day of the inauguration, Yvette Cooper announced there would be a national inquiry into the Southport killings. So again, maybe I'm not sophisticated enough in the political arts, Nick. You know far more than I do. Why has that happened?
That's happened because they've already been burnt by not having an inquiry, a national inquiry into the grooming gangs. So they've already been burnt on that. And they've realised they're going to want an inquiry. We either go through months of being beaten and ruin our reputation more, or we announce it ourselves. If we announce it ourselves, then we can write the terms of reference for the inquiry. And that's why I'd say 99.9% of any government inquiry is not worth the paper it's written on, because the politicians writes the term of reference, which means you need to look into this, not this, don't speak to them, only look at these years, don't go off at a tangent. So they make you investigate exactly what they want you to investigate, knowing there's nothing at the end of it. They never give you a broad brief. They never say to these people running the inquiries, look into whatever you want. Wherever the evidence takes you, look there, because you don't know what that's going to turn up. So therefore, we don't want you looking there. We're going to tell you a very tight time frame and a tight area of where to look. So they're going to write that into the brief. And it won't include political interference. It won't include, did Keir Starmer in his previous job as a barrister ever represent anybody who's known to the Rubalcaba family. All these things will be written into the terms of reference, or written out of the terms of reference. They won't actually state don't do that, but it won't be in it. And we'll get the report in a couple of years' time, and it will say lessons have been learned. This couldn't happen again. We've reformed the referral process now for prevent, and we're going to spend 100 million on integrating immigrants and second generation immigrants into this country, and it's going to be a whitewash, waste of time and waste of hundreds of millions.
Starmer has already said that he knew what was happening. He was being briefed all the way through this.
Of course, everybody knew that.
So he knew that the guy was a terrorist. He knew the guy was, he will have seen a picture of that, in what he looked like. He will have known that this guy was an Islamic terrorist, jihadist, or whatever it might have been. He will have known that Prevent had been told about this guy 3 times. He would have known that the kid had gone to school with a knife. He'd have known he was expelled. He would have known that he was a very troubled individual.
He'd have known everything. Within hours of it happening, he'd have known everything.
And he's admitted this.
Yeah.
So the next question for me, before we get on to it, because Starmer made a speech this morning, which again I'm going to come on to. The question I've written down here is, the statement I've written down here, and I want your opinion on this, is free the political prisoners now, exclamation mark. So my view, maybe I'm being naive here, Nick, but all these political prisoners, and we have the list of their names that you and I occasionally go through, who suggested this guy was a terrorist, that it was Islamic attack or whatever, who were imprisoned with the full knowledge of Starmer that these things were true. Shouldn't they be freed now? And just as a backdrop to this, another executive order that Trump has signed today. I'm having to bring you up to speed with what Trump's been doing, because clearly you've not even bothered reading the papers today. But Trump has also signed an executive order today freeing 1,500 January the 6th political prisoners immediately. Yeah. So those guys, the guys who stormed the Capitol, who didn't hurt anybody, or did what are they?
I wouldn't use the word storm.
Walked in very slowly. Yeah.
That's what they did.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. Yeah. They walked in very slowly. Actually encouraged by FBI agents, we now find out. So the guys that entered the Capitol building nicely and calmly on January 6th, 1,500 of them have been freed now. Yeah. Trump's gone in and signed a bit of paper. Yeah. Yeah. So that's another thing I would add to the list of things that need to be happening now. So given Starmer knew, the government knew, Yvette Cooper will have known that this guy was exactly what these people were saying he was. They should be freed now.
I agree. Won't happen. Won't happen. Starmer can't afford to do it, because it sends the signal, first of all, that he was wrong, that he was biased. But don't forget, he used those political prisoners to hopefully ensure no one else goes on the streets. You can't release them all and then not expect everyone to go back on the streets once the next attack happens. So this was all about controlling. This was never about justice. These people never got to court because of justice. They got to court because it was politically convenient to punish some people to make sure no one else went on the streets. So they will remain in jail.
And is that a national scandal?
It is, and hopefully it'll maybe be addressed by the next government who comes in. And maybe one day, maybe a government in the future will have to issue apologies to those people on behalf of the nation.
It's got to happen, hasn't it? But if you're saying that's not going to happen until the next government gets in, that's 4 more years for those guys.
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
What I don't understand is, why are people not writing about this stuff? Why are we not on the streets about this stuff, Nick?
Because 1% of the people on the streets were idiots and ruined it for everybody else. The majority of people in this country still rely to a certain extent on mainstream media. It was successfully portrayed as far right to a certain extent because we could see the violence. We could see the bricks being thrown at police. We could see people trying to set fire to hotels. None of that is acceptable. But they were only 1% of the people demonstrating, and they ruined it for everybody else. I just hope the next time British people are on the streets after the next atrocity, which is coming, because there's always an atrocity coming, I hope next time those individuals and people like that will understand better, and the other people on those demonstrations need to police those people better. And give them a good hiding and saying, every time you throw a brick at the police, you're ruining everything. More girls are being raped. More girls are being murdered. You know, you're not helping anybody. And so we need to police those things better, the individuals there, and give someone a good hiding so they know you don't do that. But they're stuck in jail at the moment, and you know, and they're gonna do their term. You know, they may be out halfway through. I mean, that woman was halfway through her term and didn't get early parole.
They've turned down her parole. No, I was going to talk about that later. Yeah. I can't remember her name now.
Yeah, well, that's how I know.
Yeah, so
that's how I know they're not going to release them early, because
Julie Sweeney, she's a 53-year-old. She was jailed for 15 months over social media posts.
Yep.
And I think those social media posts were very simply things like, oh, burn the mosque, we need to burn the mosque down, and things like that. Relating to Islamic, the fact she regarded it Islamic.
But this is online. There's a big difference to me between online and on the streets.
Oh, yeah, she was online.
There's a difference.
This is a little woman in Cheshire, 53-year-old little woman. Not little woman, it's not that old. And somebody wrote, this is the story of the day. No early release for one of the political prisoners.
Yeah.
This old woman will be taught a lesson she will never forget, and through her we will all remain afraid of the government. Welcome to Soviet UK.
Did I write that?
You might have done.
Yeah, I think I wrote that. And that's how I know they won't release the political prisoners, because if they wanted to get rid of this...
yes, you did write it, yeah.
If they wanted to get rid of this problem of the political prisoners, they would quickly wait till paroles and let them go at parole, the first parole, to free up the places and to stop and have the government stop being accused of having political prisoners. They'd get them out. We've sent the message now. Just get them out of jail. But they're not. They're refusing paroles. That's how I know.
This is a national fucking scandal, I think, with these political prisoners.
That's why I call it Soviet Britain.
Yeah. This is a national scandal. So Starmer's came on the TV this morning to give one of his many speeches. There's just one thing that gave me a glimmer of hope about this. He didn't say far right at any point, as I understand it. I don't know if you watched it, but I think he didn't say far right.
I didn't watch it, but I've not read that he said far right.
What he did say is we've got a new terrorist threat.
Yes.
And what he said that threat is...
Young boys in a bedroom on the internet.
Young men in bedrooms is now... So it's rather than saying the threat we've got is Islam, it's here now, there's too much of it. Rather than actually just tell the bloody truth, he says now the threat is young men in bedrooms. So I was thinking all the young white kids who were told they're shit at school and the toxic males and the racists and they have, what's the word? What have they got? White privilege and all that shit, all the critical race theory bollocks. So now, they can't afford to live in another house because the government's ruined the economy and people can't earn enough money the tax too heavily to buy. So they've got to stay at home in the parents' home in their bedroom. And now they're a danger because they're a young man in a bedroom. Yeah. So
he's basically saying, I blame young men masturbating in their bedrooms on the internet. Can't young men do anything now? Can we not sit in our bedrooms and just masturbate? Can we not?
I mean, it is ludicrous, isn't it? It's pathetic.
He needed a new boogeyman.
Yeah.
He's been told by his advisors, for God's sake here, don't say far right, because everyone laughs at us.
Yeah. You think he's finally got that message?
Oh, now? I think he's been told, don't say far right. They're laughing at every time you say it. You annoy people and they'll laugh at you. We need a new type of enemy. Let's have... start talking about the wankers in the bedrooms. Blame them, because no one likes a wanker. They're the problem. So I think he's just swapped far right to young men in their bedrooms on their own.
Yeah,
pathetic.
Yeah. Young men, not young Islamic men, not young Muslims, not young Pakistani, not anything. To do
He can't afford to distinguish of who he really means. He has to use these blanket terms.
It's pathetic
because he still wants Muslim votes.
It's pathetic, isn't it? Young. So it's basically incels. So basically, it's like young white men, as you say, masturbating at home in bedrooms, and now the greatest threat. But as I read that, what I thought, and I think I wrote it on a WhatsApp group I'm in. If you lined up 100 people and said, what's our biggest threat at the moment in this terrorist threat at the moment in this country, do you think any one of them would have said, or would 90% of them have said, yes, the threat is definitely young men in their bedrooms? Nobody would have said that, would they? No. You lined up 100 people, not one of them would say it's young men in their bedrooms is the threat we're facing at the moment. I would suggest if they were normal people like you and I, 80% would say it's Islam. And Islamic men, basically, are the biggest threat to this country.
At the moment. Because 30 years ago, it was Irishmen.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
So, we have to deal with the information. we've got and the time period we're living in.
Yeah.
At this moment in time,
Yeah.
the number one danger, 80-90% of the danger is Islamic terrorism and Islamic nutcases. It's not always been like that, and it won't always be like that, but at this moment it's that.
Yeah. At the moment, the biggest terrorist threat to this country is Islamic men, jihadists, potentially who are going to do that. The biggest threat to young English girls at the moment is Pakistani men in grooming gangs. You know, that's the reality, isn't it? But for some reason we can't say these things. Oh, well, we can say them now. Well, you and I are saying them.
Well, we're saying, but we're not looking for votes, are we? We're not looking for a block of votes of the Muslim community who are harvested by the inmans and the political go-betweens at the mosques who tell everybody, bring all your postal votes here and we'll fill them all in together and just leave them here and we'll deliver them. So you've got to make sure the local imam, the local mosque is on board if you want to harvest those Muslim votes. You don't harvest those votes if it looks like you're criticising Islam or that community. And that's exactly why he's blaming young men at home on the internet. Within that, he means young men being radicalised online into Islam. He means that in there as well, but he puts a fog over it all. Yeah. So he's blaming all young men, correct. All at home, all on the internet, because he doesn't want to pick anyone out. Yeah.
And it is pathetic. It is genuinely pathetic, isn't it? He just will not address the issue that we're facing as a country.
Because he can't, because his political career and his party's existence relies on it.
But I think the sad thing about that, Nick, is if somebody actually came out now and started speaking the truth about the issues, they would get far more votes than the Pakistani bloc or the Islam bloc could get, and they would romp home in an election. This is where the mood of the country is now.
It is, but that is just projection, and that is an educated guess. They don't want educated guesses. They're thinking, this is our winning formula. We've been winning like this for decades. Yeah. We just need to show up our vote. Yeah. So
I think you call it the playbook, don't you? Yeah. What they don't understand is that playbook has been torn up and thrown out of the window. And we're seeing what it's like now in Europe. We're seeing what it's like now in America. And this bullshit doesn't work anymore with us. We're not stupid. You know, you and I have been awake for a while, but I think everybody else is starting to wake up now.
Yeah. The playbook has also been ripped up by the Muslims themselves, because they've started electing independent radical Muslims in Parliament. There's talk about an Islamic party they tried to set up an Islamic party, but it failed the electoral commission test. But the Muslims themselves are beginning to realise, we don't need the Labour Party. You know, there's enough of us now in these areas for us to get our MPs elected, for us to take over that council. We don't need the Labour Party.
That's interesting.
We're not playing second fiddle to the Labour Party anymore now. We're the masters here. We're going to run this area the way we want to run it. So Labour are already losing them, hence why they're doubling down, trying to tempt them back.
Very interesting. So I think, you know, it was a day of contrast yesterday, wasn't it? Yesterday and today was a day of contrast. In America, we saw what we would like to see happen. And in the UK, what did we see?
DDSS. Different day, same shit.
I think on that fantastic acronym, Nick Buckley, MBE, we'll end episode 73. And if you've liked what you've seen today, folks, please thumbs up, subscribe would be great. And there's a nice book there which Nick is selling.
It's still selling. Get it on Amazon.
By the hundreds, if not thousands.
Yep.
So,
it's still selling well on Amazon. It's the only place you can buy it, because I self-published. It's doing well.
Nick Buckley, thank you very much.
Cheers.